I was only going to make that speech about 10 minutes before I made it, so I'm glad I did in the end. There was a speech I did the day before which was in language, in Dungutty language, and that was the day I announced in the local press that I was resigning and Tony Windsor resigned and Julie Gillow got steered. So there was a lot going on that day. That day was the thing I was most occupied and nervous about, was trying to get the Dungutty language right. Despite the elders saying, don't worry, if you get it wrong, there's only 3 people who'll know. That's how endangered some of these languages are. So yeah, and I'm glad I made that speech and lots of lovely feedback wherever I go on that. And it's sad, well, it's not sad, it's nice, but it's sad that in many ways it had to be said. It shouldn't have actually been said.
It's the only time she came close to crying.
What's that?
It's the only time she came close to crying.
Yeah, and myself as well. I've forever told everyone in my office, and this came back to bite me, I absolutely hate crying politicians. And didn't they let me know? It's just, it all feels and looks too superficial. But that one was genuine for what it's worth. I'm sure they all know that. News Limited. Look, News Limited. The polite version, the diplomatic version is they are welcome in the landscape and they have a right to do whatever they want to do. And I would just encourage everyone to read them and everything else and fact check on your own. You know, forever keep your curious mind and forever keep your, you know, there's always more to a story than the one that is written. That's the polite version. The not so polite version is, look. Well, they were shameless over those 3 years. The venom they spat my way here locally, and on some of what they wrote was full of half-truths and quite often completely false.
Maybe their name is back to front. It should be limited news.
They dragged, and I'm in the trade, so I've got to cop it in some way. They dragged staff members through the mud. There was one day where we received 20 phone calls from 20 different journalists at the one newspaper, The Australian, in one working day. We were borderline on, you know, harassment. It mentally, like being completely frank, it mentally affected one of my staff, you know, who were right in the middle of media management during that period. It was vicious and nasty, and certainly won't be forgotten. Some of it was self-inflicted. You know, sometimes, you know, I was moving from very much being someone who had worked in a local environment for a long period of time and very quickly had to sharpen up on my own language and our own strategy. But we'd always taken a view of being as open as possible and expressing views, and that quite often came back to bite us. But the ways... We had a fellow hanging outside our toilets with the electorate office who was a journalist. We could not go to the toilet without having to go past an Australian journalist whose job was just to sit there and wait and get comment. I could give you a list a mile long. Do you want a list a mile long?
I think you could count the quality journalists in the Murdoch press as on the fingers of one finger.
Yeah, look, and this is what I don't know, which I'd love to know, is just how much of it is centralised editorial. You know, how much of this behaviour they're being told to do a certain, you know, the story's written before it's written. And how much of it's just a general tone. There are good people and good journalists in the news organisation, but I just feel there's this, and this is the busted business model argument, is that the model is so marginal now, they've just become campaigning papers to try and find an angle to make a buck. But does it provide quality information? I don't think so. I think I cannot read anything now in those newspapers without thinking, I'm sure there's more to this story. And you shouldn't do that. Now, whether that's the great privilege of this moment, whether that has just flushed it out so we've all seen it, and thank goodness it's been flushed out, or whether this is Chris Mitchell's approach and where he's taken the Australian newspaper. But I don't think it's helped the circulation, and all anecdotal feedback is everyone's on to, you know, the journalist code of ethics being absolutely thrown out the window. It doesn't matter anymore, and this is a campaign, you know, spreadsheet on particular causes.
Certainly.